Thank you for clicking this video. This is Battle with Ola. My name is Mujola Olua, and in this video we want to talk about how to cross-examine the investigating police officer. We've talked about how to examine him in an earlier video. Please watch it if you haven't. But today we want to talk about how to cross-examine the investigating police officer, and this concerns the defense counsel. So the prosecution has opened their case, and they have called the investigating police officer. They've examined him. It's time for you to cross-examine. Don't forget, we've talked about different things, rules, guidelines, for cross-examination in the extensive video we did on examinations. So please watch that as well. So now you want to start by asking questions that are like a build-up on what the prosecution has asked. So the important thing to note is that cross-examination questions, you can have a guideline of how the questions will proceed, but to an extent, it is usually dictated by what the prosecution did during examination in chief. So that will determine whether you build up on it, you expand it, you constrict, you add, you subtract, or whatnot. So you can start by asking the officer, how long have you been in the police force? You can follow up by asking, you said that you arrested the accused person or the defendant. Did you arrest the defendant at the point of commission of the crime? Then you probably say that they received intelligence. By the time they got there, the robbers were already fleeing, so they arrested him and his gang members ran away. Then you can follow up by saying that this is a charge of armed robbery. You said you arrested the defendant at the scene of crime. Was he arrested with any weapons? Then you probably say no, because in our examination in chief, no weapon, no reference to any weapon was made mention of, which would be a very shoddy and sloppy job if that is the case in any matter. These are just instances that I'm giving. So you would say no, we did not arrest him with any weapon. Then you say, but you also mentioned that you arrested him with the loot. Then you say, you jump at that and say, yes, we arrested him with maybe 10 packs of 1,000 naira notes, And then you can follow up and ask him, what are the ingredients of the crime of armed robbery? If he's a smart officer, he might answer, or if he doesn't know, which sometimes can happen, he will say that he doesn't know. So then you will now list it out to him, or even instead of asking, you can list it out. Are you aware that there must be a weapon, in the crime of armed robbery? Then you say yes. So then the court will take judicial notice of that. Or you can even repeat it before the court, not asking the court to write it down, but just repeat it so that my lord will take note that one of the ingredients of the offense of armed robbery is that there must be a weapon with the aid of which the armed robber puts the victim in apprehension of harm, or actually harms, the victim, that's either for attempted or for armed robbery that was fully committed. But in this case, there was no weapon. Of course, you might say that he quickly jettisoned the weapon and ran away and was trying to make away with the loot when he was arrested, but you've made your point. Then you can say that, officer, you said you arrested the defendant, my client. Did you do any other thing in this matter? Then he will say that, yes, he took the statement and then he handed him over to the other officers. Then you say, officer, I put it to you that you know nothing about this investigation. You know nothing about this matter. Then you will try to defend and say he knows it's teamwork. Even after he made the arrest, he continued. He was kept in the loop with the investigation and all of that. He will try to defend. Then you now say that, are you aware that in Exhibit A, that's the defendant's statements, the defendant mentioned that he was returning from church, from an evening prayer meeting in church when he was arrested. Then you will say that the defendant is lying. Then you would ask him, did you confirm this alibi? Did you go to the church to confirm it? So you try to ram in the fact that the alibi was not confirmed if it was not indeed confirmed. And if it was confirmed, they can say that yes, that there was no, they might even say that there was no church within the vicinity, so the defendant was clearly lying, which means that they did not try to confirm the alibi. Then you can follow up and say that I put it to you that if indeed you got any intelligence report about the commission of a crime in that area, the real robbers had run away at the time you arrived and you made random arrests to give off a pretense of actually having arrested the real culprits of the crime, Then he will say no, you defend, might even get angry that you're trying to teach him his job, that they arrested the real person. Then you can follow up and ask that, at what time exactly did you receive the intelligence report? Then he might say that maybe at 8 p.m. Or thereabouts. Then you can ask him, at what time was the defendant arrested? Then you probably say 8:30 or thereabouts. You can establish the fact that at 8 p.m. when the crime was being committed, according to the intelligence reports that the officer claimed to have received, your client was in church leading Bible study or maybe closing prayer or something, and there are witnesses who are in this matter who will testify to the fact that he was actually in church worshiping his maker at the time the crime was being committed. Then the officer might try to make a case out of the fact that it was 8 o'clock or so soon thereafter, or around that time, that you cannot just claim because there's a 30 minutes or 20 minutes difference, then your client is not the robber or part of the robbers. So if you're towing the part of he being in church and all of that, that means that you must have listed as part of your witnesses people that were in church with him that will prove that at that time he was in church. It couldn't have been the same person that was at the scene of crime, and that maybe he was arrested on his way home, even if maybe there's a companion that they were going home together. If that's the true story, you could bring that person to also testify that police suddenly rounded them up, and then if the person flew away or ran away while the defendant was arrested, you can ask him that, did you make any effort to arrest his so-called gang members? Then they'll say yes, their efforts proved abortive and all of that. Then you repeat the fact that I put it to you that the real culprits of the crime, if any at all, had already made away from the scene of crime with the loot of the crime, and that you made random arrests to give off a semblance of doing your job, and you are only victimizing my client. If you want to toe the line of an involuntary statement, if there's anything incriminating in the statement of your client that he has made or that has been tendered before the court, you can also toe that line and say that I put it to you that you tortured the victim, you whipped him, you denied him of food, you put him in harsh weather conditions, build up different difficult situations that they could have put your client, which made him say or write whatever he wrote. And that and then you can ask them how was the statement taken if they deny, then the conditions, who was there, and all of that, just to establish the fact that it was an involuntary statement. Then you go back and say that it was really involuntary. Your client was tortured, he was beaten, he was whipped, and all of that when the statement was obtained forcefully from him, or when he was forcefully made to write those incriminating things about himself. So I've talked about alibi. You can use that. You can use an involuntary statement, and you can just continue to puncture, the evidence that the IPO has given. So you've talked about not establishing the ingredients of the crime, like no weapon, and all of that. So this is just an example. If you notice, I try to follow what we talked about in the first video on examination in chief. So for coherence, it's important for you to follow that. Of course, you have questions that you originally want to ask that will have nothing to do with what the prosecution has said, which is those things I talked about, is alibi, lack of weapon and all of that. But there are questions also that you need to ask just to prove to the court that this man is lying. He did not do what he said he did. So you could also say that I put it to you, officer, that you know nothing about this investigation. You probably have said that before, but you can repeat it, and then just to show that after he left the police station, he did nothing in the matter. Then he will try to say that his colleagues continued and that it was teamwork and all of that. Then you can round off your case and say, no further questions, my lord, and then the witness will be turned back to the prosecution for re-examination, in which case they will try to patch up that part of no weapon and not proving the alibi. But this is just an example. I hope it helps, and I hope it helps you to begin to think about how to tackle, an investigating police officer. Don't forget that it's not your enemy. The case is the enemy. So you attack the substance and not the person. Of course, if you want to talk about how the person is doing his job or carrying on about the case too, it's allowed, but be very civil. Okay, I will see you in my very next video. That's all I want to talk about today. To-dos.